Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Everything Theater Podcast, the podcast where we talk about...
Pretty much everything theater.
I'm Ellen Cribbs.
And I'm Benita Zahn. And despite the pandemic, there is a lot of theater going on. It may not look like the theater we're used to. Some of it is just the theater of the mind at this point. But a lot of it is looking forward and looking toward tomorrow even, and creative ways of doing theater.
And we're so close to being done with this year. Hopefully, 2021 will have a bit more theater than 2020. Here's hoping.
We may have to have a kick 2020 to the curb party. Everybody come dressed as your favorite character, and let's just. I'm looking at our guests, and I think they're kind of agreeing with us. We've got Repeat of a Sellout tonight, and as far as our guests are concerned, we've had these gents on before, and in the 518, they are very well known for their creative abilities, their performances on stage, their directing chops. So it's great to have. We've got Patrick White with us and Chris Foster. Hello.
Hello. Great to be here.
So last time we spoke to you guys was our 2019 roundup. And one of the things is every year you guys, make a little competition of people guessing how many shows you see every year. And 2019 was a record for you guys. How many did you have in 2019?
It was 317.
Wow. I'm guessing you did not beat that record this year.
How low can you go? How low can you go? Yeah.
I know you did get to at least one show out of doors, and more than that, because the Troy Foundry had a show not that long ago, and I spied you in the audience.
Yeah, Models of Perfection at Troy Foundry Theater. Yeah, we saw, a dozen. We actually have a show coming up this weekend. Yeah, Chili. It's going to be in the barn at Berkshire Theater Group. They're doing an adaptation of Truman Capote's Christmas Stories in their scenery shop, which is alongside the Unicorn Theater. So yeah, it's going to be chilly.
Yeah.
Back at the end of September, we actually worked on a show together up in Saratoga at Homemade Theater, Cry It Out, and that was outdoors as well.
Right. Last weekend in September 1st and October. And we had a little drizzling before one performance, but it was actually pretty great weather. Luckily.
You hear the breathing. So how did that stack up to other local productions you have seen in the past? And I don't mean in terms of, the acting was wonderful, but in terms of a theatrical experience, out of doors, smaller crowds, socially distanced.
Yeah.
That still work as a theatrical experience for you.
I think one of the advantages of that particular piece, Benita, was that it takes place outdoors. So it didn't feel, false that way. It takes place outside between these two houses that these two young women live in. So, and on their toy furniture and their picnic table and that kind of thing. Yeah. So, that part of it worked really well. What was, I think, strange probably for the actors is, we're so used to getting reactions from the audience. We feed off that, and they were getting reactions. But remember, everybody in the audience had a mask on, so that muffles it. And so that was a sort of odd, even though they were they really enjoyed the performance and they really enjoyed the actors. It was kind of a different thing than what we're used to,
Yeah, there were a number of different things about the production. The setting lent itself, but there were times during the script when it was set at 10 a.m. or it was set at 8 p.m. or midnight. And that was, difficult to convey. I'm not sure how I would solve that in the future. But also, like Chris said, the audience's reaction, they're enjoying the show and everything, but they're also spaced apart. And there were only 40 of them. And some of them were 100 feet from the stage. So, you know, and there were a lot of obstacles in putting it on. It was well worthwhile. Loved working on the play, loved the cast, loved the ability to, you know, get something on stage and actually do a show. But there were a lot of issues with, you know, from the time you arrived to sanitizing your hands. We moved the set outdoors every night and packed it up and brought it in. We rehearsed at 6:30 at night, so the sun went down at 7:30, and then we moved the whole set indoors, you know, and, you know, they're just
The logistics.
things that you take for granted. And there was no, you know, major disaster or anything. No one got sick in the audience or in the cast, but there were a lot of things to contend with. And, you know, and we got it done.
Would you do it again? Is it that vital to you?
In a heartbeat.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, and we enjoyed seeing the few things that we did see this summer, you know, outside. It was more, you know, in my humble opinion, it still bested anything over Zoom. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys, because I've seen you all over the place. You know, you are such theater enthusiasts that you catch anything you can. So we've got, you know, play readings on Zoom. We've got full productions done live on Zoom. We've got things that were
Game
filmed on
shows.
stage, you know, released, you know, via some kind of media, and then the
Yeah.
outdoor show. So what do you think has some legs? Like, what do you think worked well in these weird times?
I'm gonna say, Ellen, I'm gonna say that the things that worked the best for me were things that were actually filmed and then put together on Zoom. That way they had more control over, you know, if there was audio dropout, or, you know, that they could do things over, you know what I mean? And there's just too many things that can happen in the moment.
We were both in productions, and Zoom kicked us out during the performance. And I had a class 2 weekends ago on Zoom, and Zoom kept kicking me out. Like, my class went on without me, you know, and I would just like pop in at certain times. But yeah, it was like, you know, one of the actors' nightmares is missing your entrance cue. And with Zoom, it's like just normal, you know. Oh, don't worry about it.
Guaranteed.
Yeah, it's like part of the price of doing business is missing your entrance.
And sometimes there's none of those problems, you know, but, you know, more often than not, there's something pops in.
I was going to say, even without the technology issues, I did a full production that was filmed, and we were trying to play the whole gimmick of someone punches me, you know, from their screen, it goes across to, and then I was going to have my husband put his fist out so it looked like I got punched, which was all, you know, well and good. But the issue is we have my 1-year-old daughter, and we had no babysitter, and she was up from her nap. So he's holding the baby and like trying to do this thing. And neither of us thought about the fact that she might be upset with it looking like that daddy hit mommy. And she just burst out crying. And it's like, you know, all the challenges of these times trying to make art.
And we saw a couple of those where they were doing just that, what you're talking about.
Handing props off.
Handing props off and then grabbing them on the other side. And honestly, they don't match up. It never works.
It's like, oh, this is clever. Nah.
You've got to know the parameters of what you're doing. Early on, I did a Zoom of Agnes of God, and the psychiatrist smokes. So trying to have the cigarette and the ashtray and turn the pages.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know, maybe we won't. You know, it's
some of the things that worked on Zoom. I think were extraordinary community building activities. Just this last weekend, there was a Black Theater Festival. And of course, there was 846, which had 7 groups in the area producing a response to George Floyd. And like nowhere else in the country could this be done than in the Capital Region, to have 7 groups so quickly come up with original work, you know, in that response. And it was viewed like 14,000 times. It's like extraordinary. It's the Capital Region that did that, and Capital Region Theater that made that possible. And, you know, from the moment that Quarantine E-Theater started, and you just log in and like 80 people would be there. And that's like not even a sold out house at Sand Lake or Albany Civic, but still, you were like, oh my gosh, everyone's here, you know, and that they
just want to $3,000. Right. Along those lines, Patrick, they were making money. They were making money for the local theater organizations that otherwise would have been like nothing.
Right. And it's $20,000. And, you know, there must be like a dozen companies that benefited from this. And $20,000, I was saying, you know, it's like that's like one show, or that keeps them going. You know, it's vitally important. And, you know, and it's everyone like pitching in, performing, attending, supporting. You know, the whole ecosystem was there, and it's just brilliant.
So going forward, we still have a lot of time before anybody's going into a house. And there will be the occasional theater that will figure something out. Ellen and I think you guys went over to the Berkshires. Did you see the Berkshire Theater Festival?
Yeah, we saw Harry Clark and we saw Godspell. Yeah.
And the Rodgers and Hammerstein.
That too.
Before I even ask the question, how comfortable, uncomfortable, non-starter was it to go into a house? And
those were all intense.
Yeah, but that's still inside, and there's
yeah. I didn't have a problem.
I didn't either, and they were kind of open tents rather than flap down tents. They were more like open, and they had awnings further out. So there was a lot of air circulating in those spaces.
And at one point, I think they changed the attendance. The Massachusetts governor changed it from 75 to 50. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I didn't really have an issue.
So going forward, we're not going to start seeing a lot of inoculations until late spring, probably. What do we do, guys? What do you see? You know, do you think we're doing more of what we saw before it got very cold in the Capital Region? Is it more taped to Zoom? Look in your crystal ball. When you guys sit around and have a conversation, what do you think? What do you see? What do you want?
See, you know, for me, one of the questions is, I think the vaccine's going to go around to essential workers first. So I'm not sure how fast it's going to go further out, and that's going to be a big factor. And so I think I'd be more inclined to think it's going to be more like it was this past summer, and not, you know, really back to what we would call the old normal until further on.
Yeah, and there was a piece today that 25% of New Yorkers would take the vaccine. So, you know, I think, you know, in the near future, I don't know what happened. Well, this winter, we spend on Zoom. And then we look forward to March, you know, when we can get outside and start doing open air theater again. Right now, there is a plan. I don't know how it's going to work with Sand Lake Center. Brian is doing a production in January, hopefully with an audience of 25 people. I don't know. I don't know, you know, how that's going to work or what will happen with that. We did see a piece indoors down at Denizen Theater in New Paltz, which was an audience of 8 people. It was a Neil LaBute play.
An audience of 8 people and no actors.
No actors. It was like a radio play. We drove an hour and a half for a radio play.
What do you mean, no actors?
It was recorded.
It was recorded.
Oh, well, heck, you could have stayed home.
Well, there were lights. There were other. We were in a room with other people. It was theatrical.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what we see in the future.
We kind of wanted to go see what that was about. What they were trying. Everybody's trying to do something, and so
I had never been to an experience like it before in my life.
and he may
Are
never
you running back?
again.
I wouldn't subscribe.
Ellen and I spoke to the folks from Albany Barn last week. And well, this would be 2 weeks ago now for our listeners going, I didn't hear that last week. It was 2 weeks ago podcast. And they have, performing space there. And I don't know as you can put much more than, what do you think, Ellen? 15 maybe now?
Maybe.
Well,
yeah.
coincidentally, I just started my acting class back at Albany Barn. I used to hold it at the Masonic Lodge, and 4 weeks ago, we started class back at Albany Barn, and I've got a class of 20. So yeah, we spread out on the floor, and then we can use the stage as well. And everyone certainly is 6 feet away from each other. So yeah, I've got an acting class going.
How does that class look different now? Are you doing scene work, monologue work? How's
We
it
are
working?
doing scene work. I'm doing a lot of monologues. I'm also doing a Zoom class, and we do a lot of monologues on Zoom. Not much scene work, but yeah, everyone is doing scene work in acting class, and they're kept. They are socially distanced, or they're masked. That's another thing in Cry It Out. I incorporated masks as part of the physical vocabulary into the show. All the characters, even though, it was written way before COVID, but that was sort of like the physical condition, not commented on, but everyone wore masks at some point during the play. And if they were 12 feet apart, they could take the masks off. But yeah, that's how we do it. And, the response to class, I was sort of like, Casey, let's see how this goes. I'll pay you for, 4 sessions and see if I get, students. But I had 20 people, and I had more wanting to take it. And I was like, let's hold off for a bit until
And they showed up the next week as well, and the next week after that. So it's not like they went, oh, this is scary, I'm not coming back.
Yeah. I mean, there are people who are hesitant, and there are people who are interested in Cry It Out. But I still, there were people that declined to audition for it, that didn't want to do it, that were hesitant. But I still had 20 people audition for it, and I was able to come up with, a diverse, inclusive cast, and yeah, it worked.
Do you have something in the works for that warm spell that hits in March, or are you still looking for something?
I'm looking. I said to Chris, we need to play in a parking garage. Something covered and, open, but no, I'm looking. I want to produce something.
We're laughing. Ellen, when we met doing Shakespeare in Love,
Right.
where we parked is affectionately referred to as Sarajevo.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So we need a Sarajevo type script.
That's where my mind went
Right.
to when he said parking lot.
Right?
Right.
Right away, my mind.
Maybe go back and read those Václav Havel. Please.
Yeah, but maybe you
By the way,
just
this
do
is
like,
Ice-T. People can't.
maybe you just do some like living room comedy, just like some, 50s structure of mommy and daddy and the whole, nuclear family, and yet you do it in a parking lot just to show that the whole thing has been blasted apart.
In my mind, I'm seeing Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf now.
Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Whole new dynamic.
Yeah.
I was speaking with somebody who will remain unnamed, who had been part of the layoff at one of the theaters in the area, and we were talking about what Proctor's might look like coming back,
Mm.
because
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
scale and the cost of the staff there.
Yeah.
And listen, kids, it ain't coming back like we're opening up the floodgates. People will
Well-
take the time to return.
And I think they'll be able to do the small stuff sooner than using the big theater, like the Addy and the GE Theater, for different kinds of events. But when I think about Proctor's, I also think about like down in New York. It's kind of the same situation. Those old theaters that had chairs that were this close to each other.
Yeah, hit like no other industry in the country, and one of the things that Proctor's has is space, but that doesn't, facilitate a staff of 100, like to do a play in their lobby or, on their roof or, the alternate spaces that they have, you could do, certainly for an audience of 50. But how do you sustain that? Like they need to at a professional level. Whereas, Albany Civic Theater, Sand Lake Center for the Arts, Homemade Theater, we can do an audience of 40 and be happy with the results. Ecstatic. Cried Out was a great success. But, that's not going to work for Proctor's. I don't think. But, I don't know.
They're not going to be able to afford to bring in a
Right.
Tour.
Hamilton and have 25 people in the audience.
Well, the touring industry, it's not like baseball. No one's talking about, a bus and truck tour.
Because the problem, I think, there is, while you may be able to have a bubble with your cast, every time you go into a theater,
Or a
you
hotel,
another
or-
crew.
Mhm.
So I'm a little, I guess, okay, this is the worried part of the show tonight.
Whose idea was to do wrap up of 2020?
All right,
Just light a fire.
we have a little fun then. If you had to pick a collection of characters that we could all go outside, dress up as, and drop kick
No.
2020. Come on, what characters?
No, Benita, no. It's all too horrible. It's all too horrible. It's a nightmare.
But you got to get rid of it. We have to leave it behind us, and we have to
Just
look forward.
exercise it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of friends are not. A lot of friends are looking at other careers now
Yeah.
because they,
Yeah.
they're pros, and
Sure. Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, horribly. There are 250,000 Americans dead. And I lost a very, very good friend who was technical director at the school, the American Academy of Dramatic Arts.
Mm.
He was he had just retired 2 years ago. He was seeing Broadway shows all the time. He was in the audience for Girl from the North Country the night before theaters closed in. So he was in a 1,200 seat theater, and contracted, or he had COVID, he was, passed away by April. But, it's like,
Yeah.
horrible.
yeah. And
And
now,
there are stories about the Broadway community. I mean, it raged through Moulin Rouge. They canceled the performance before the March 12th closed down. But there are stories through the Broadway community that of 25% infection among the casts. And
so ultimately, if you want to play that other game with me, remember my day job is I'm a reporter, so I got a dark view of the world. Is looking forward and how we go. How do we get there? So it's more Zoom. what I'm hearing you say. It's more video to the computer world. And then hopefully come the warmer weather, we find opportunities. People are now looking at scripts that will allow them to perform out of doors.
I think so. Yeah, to begin with. I don't know, and a measured indoor,
Right. Somebody's going to have to start with the indoor again.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's Barrington Stage or one of the, larger theaters, and to see how that goes.
And Harry Clark was meant to be indoors before Massachusetts pulled the plug and sent it into a tent. But 2 weeks beforehand, they had removed, I think it was 60% of their seats, and it's a one-man show. So, it was just going to be him alone, and there was no one backstage, and, but yeah, someone's going to try. Brian's trying in Sand Lake. There will be attempts to do indoor work and try and keep the distancing and sanitizing. And
what are you reading? What are you reading? Are you reading?
What are you reading?
Reading. What are you reading?
Reading. Oh,
reading.
Yeah. I read a great play. I love this play, Downstate by Bruce Norris. It's one of my favorite plays of the year. It's the playwright of Clybourne Park, and it's about a home for sex offenders in downstate Illinois, downstate of Chicago. And it's these four men and the social worker and a former victim, and it's how they live together. And
how do they move forward with their lives?
And how does the community accept them or not? And how do you make peace with that?
So cheery stuff.
You know what? It's interesting. I think I thought about saying something about Patrick McKenna in this recording. For those, and most of the theater community in the 518 either knew Patrick or knew of him. He was smart and funny and talented and just one of those all-around good guys who, at the age of 58, just lost his life to ALS. Mm-hmm. And he was part of the fight to get the house in Waterford for persons living with HIV. Back when nobody wanted to be around anyone who had HIV. You heard AIDS and the world went screaming. So to talk about the show, he would have been great to be involved in the play you just described, because it deals with community, not accepting and being fearful of the other, not learning who the other is.
And I think based on the past 4 years, that there's going to be a lot more plays that are written about those kinds of topics.
We all have to look at 70 million people who voted for the man who lost and say, how do we get along with these people? Or how do they get along with us? Mm-hmm. I saw an interview with Anne Bogart, and there's been a lot more online content. I've seen a lot of interviews this year, but she said one of the theater's great questions is, how do we live together?
Mm-hmm. Ellen, I'm looking at the clock. I think we've got 2 or 3 minutes. Is that correct?
I know. Yeah, we're wrapping up. But so we'll do we've done a close-up segment with you guys before, but we'll ask a few more questions. Are you ready for your second close-up?
Sure.
No.
Just a quick question. Well, first of all, tell us, because I know, Patrick, at least you have 2 projects coming up. Tell us about those projects that you are working on now. You said you were
I just finished Confetti Fest is another brilliant piece. They did 5 one-act plays. They filmed them all individually. 3 or 4 of them were filmed, at least in part, at the Albany Barn. I did a one-man show, Merry Christmaka to All. Dan Smurlock did a monologue about his mixed religion background. His mother was Italian, his father was Jewish. So that's where Merry Christmaka comes in. And yeah, it's a monologue. And we filmed that. Confetti Fest is going up December 3rd through 10th, I believe. And there'll be some talkback nights, but it'll be on Zoom. And the other piece we're still struggling with, Sunset Limited by Cormac McCarthy. It's me and Jean-Remy Monet, 2-character play, and my character wants to catch the Sunset Limited, which is throw himself in front of a train, wants to kill himself, and Jean-Remy is trying to talk me out of it yes. So that's the play, directed by Aaron Moore, and we're not sure where it's going, what's going to happen with it, but we just keep rehearsing it.
It's sort of like a statement on now.
Yeah,
Yes,
it is.
yes.
That's good.
Just keep going.
The nice thing about Zoom is that we can like see you guys in your own space, and I keep staring behind you. You have all these great posters. What is the story of your poster wall?
Yeah, it's Schubert Alley.
So during the COVID time, there were many things that we did around the house.
Some people organized their Tupperware drawer or their spice rack. I got all my posters together and hung them up on the wall. All
Nice.
ours.
Are these shows that you've worked on or have seen, or a combination of both?
No, these are all both of ours.
Both of ours, yeah.
It is nice.
Great.
And
I
last,
think a little Christmas is going on already back there.
Yes, yes.
we all need a little Christmas.
All out the holly.
And last question. If you tomorrow, if everything just magically poof, theaters could be open, what play would you choose to be the first, proper indoor with a big set and a big audience? What show would you want to be your big first show?
Ouch. Yeah. There's a great play that we've both been interested in, and I'm actually trying to talk Patrick into co-directing it. It's called Good Men Wanted. It's about these women that during the Civil War that would dress as men so that they could get into the fighting on both sides. So the play is the perspective of at least 5 different women. They may be Northerners or Southerners, and why they chose to hide themselves in order to enter into the war. It's a great piece, and without giving out too much away, they start in their buttoned up corseted big hoop skirts. They get rid of those during the middle of the show and put on their fatigues, and then by the end of the show they're back in their outfits. But it's not them that are getting the credit. It's still the men that are marching through the parade.
Yeah, it's a brilliant show.
It's a really fun show
by Kevin Armento. We saw it down at Powerhouse, and one of the great stories about this year is what we have missed. And by not going to Powerhouse at Vassar College, every year we see something that we have no idea about. We've never heard of the playwright, we've never heard of the play, and it just blows our mind. And it's like our mind wasn't blown this year. It's those things that we missed.
Yeah,
that you don't even know.
That's a big incubator spot, and it's really fun to see new stuff being developed there.
And every year there's something that's a favorite, and we didn't go.
Well, hopefully in 2021, your mind can be blown again.
That's all we want.
Yes, and we hope to blow someone's mind.
Great place to stop.
But it was so lovely having you guys back. And, thank you. I know it's kind of silly doing a 2020 theater in review, but But you know, it's an important year to talk about and gives us new directions for the future and a lot to look forward to moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
And, you know, things were moving along at quite a clip before we shut down. You know, there was some great stuff going on. Lady Day at Cohoes Music Hall, Frost Nixon at Schenectady Civic, Mountaintop at WAMC. There was some great work going on.
And it will go on again.
Yes,
Yes, it will.
absolutely.
So thanks, guys. Be well.
Thank you.
Thank
too.
you. Happy holidays.
You
Yes,
too.
happy holidays to all our listeners too. I'm Ellen Cribbs.
And I'm Vanita Zahn, and we'll look for you again when we're discussing Everything Theater.